All right, today we're diving into something truly mind-bending. It's a thought experiment called the Silver Strand Hypothesis. And trust me, this is one of those ideas that might just make you question, well, the very foundation of modern power.
So let me just throw this out there. What if the most powerful weapon of the 20th century was really just a story? I mean, think about it. The entire nuclear age, the Cold War, the idea of mutually assured destruction. What if all of it was built on a really, really well-managed lie?
Okay, so before we go any further, I gotta be super clear about this. What we're exploring here is a thought experiment. It's not a conspiracy theory. It all comes from a source called the Duke Report, and it's based on a fictional government memo from 1943. The whole point is to imagine a world that looks just like ours, but with one giant secret hiding right in plain sight.
And that secret? Well, it's breathtakingly simple, but whoa, is it a big one. The premise is this. What if a deliverable atomic weapon was never actually created? Like, what if the technology just hit a wall in the lab? But instead of admitting it, a small group of people decided the idea of the weapon was just too powerful to let go of.
And that's where we get the official name for this whole idea, the Silver Strand Hypothesis. It's basically a framework for understanding a world where managing what people believe becomes a more powerful strategic tool than physics itself.
So here's the really wild part. The hypothesis suggests that you could have a global system of nuclear deterrence that functions perfectly, I mean perfectly, without a single deliverable nuclear weapon existing anywhere. The entire thing would just be running on a carefully engineered and shared illusion. This quote from the source material just nails it. In this alternate reality, the real instrument of power was never the physical device. It was the story of the device. The narrative itself became the ultimate weapon.
Now, what's so fascinating is how this hypothesis makes you reread key moments of the Cold War. You start to see them not as historical events, but as these carefully staged acts of perception management.
Let's take the Rosenberg trial. Conventionally, we see it as a trial to punish the theft of atomic secrets, right? But in the Silver Strand view, it was pure theater. The state didn't sacrifice 2 lives to protect a secret, but to prove to the entire world that there was a secret worth stealing in the first place. It validates the whole illusion.
Or how about James Jesus Angleton, the legendary CIA chief? He's often painted as this paranoid guy acting against U.S. interests. This hypothesis reframes him as a master strategist. His actions weren't betrayal. They were moves to extend the illusion. By sharing little bits of a secret that can't be verified, you lock other nations into the myth. You make them both custodians and hostages of the story.
And the Cuban Missile Crisis? We think of it as the moment the world came closest to nuclear war. But in this theory, that was the moment the illusion hit its peak. It was a symmetrical dance of fear, where both sides used visible props, the missiles, as talking points for an invisible and maybe non-existent threat. It was a perfectly managed piece of global theater.
So you're probably asking, how on earth could you build and maintain a fiction this massive? Well, the hypothesis lays out a chillingly plausible blueprint. It treats the whole thing like a strategic game.
And it all comes down to incentives. Every major player has a reason to play along. The state leadership gets a massive strategic edge. Contractors get huge funding, allies get status and access, and even your adversaries are so busy trying to achieve parity that they end up reinforcing your illusion for you, with everyone benefiting who has a reason to expose the secret.
And this creates this incredibly powerful feedback loop. The leadership starts the secret. Then contractors produce signals of progress, reports, prototypes, weird facilities in the desert. This activity is then projected to the world as a credible threat. And then everyone else reacts, which reinforces the belief. And the system just grows and grows until the cost of not believing becomes catastrophically high for everybody.
So this system doesn't just stay a secret. According to the hypothesis, it evolves. It becomes an entire empire of secrecy, a self-validating reality that's built around an empty center.
So how do you even kickstart a global belief like this? You need a demonstration. The first event, Hiroshima, is the shock. It creates a sudden, massive belief that the weapon exists. But a second one, Nagasaki, is absolutely crucial. That signals replication. It tells the world this wasn't a fluke. We can do this on an industrial scale.
And from there, the system just reinforces itself. Politically, the threat is used to justify endless secrecy. Economically, entire industries and thousands of jobs come to depend on the project. Culturally, the atomic symbol, the mushroom cloud, it gets embedded in everything. And maybe most importantly, The bureaucracy of secrecy gets so huge that the process of verifying activity completely replaces any need to verify the actual truth.
Now you might be thinking, okay, this is a fascinating historical what if, but what does it have to do with today? Well, the source argues this model of power is more relevant than ever.
The idea is that the same architecture of belief management, supposedly perfected in the atomic age, is now at work all around us in the digital world. The instruments are different. It's not warheads and plutonium anymore. It's code, data, AI, and surveillance, but the fundamental principle of controlling perception to project power, that's exactly the same.
And that's maybe the final, most chilling takeaway from the source material. This method of control, this empire of belief, it didn't just vanish with the Cold War. The fiction has evolved, not ended.
So, if there's one core idea to take away from all this, it's this. The hypothesis argues that immense, world-shaping power doesn't necessarily need a physical foundation. It can be built and maintained entirely through the sophisticated management of what we all believe to be true.
Which leaves us with a final question to think about. If this thought experiment has any truth to it, if power really can be built on a story, what are the essential fictions that govern our world today?